Hey friend! So this past November, I participated in NaNoWriMo for the first time, and I bought a mug. Look how cool this is. I love this. Isn't that pretty? I love it. But anyways, if you don't know what that stands for, it stands for National Novel Writing Month. And there's this challenge where people from all over the world try to write a novel, which is a minimum of 50,000 words in the month of November, so in 1 month. And yes, it's as crazy as it sounds. It's a bunch of word vomit to get, that first sloppy draft out. It's something that I've wanted to do for years, but I just never had the time. So this year, I decided to make the time. But since I did have a lot of goals that I was already working towards, this just wasn't a top priority, so I didn't want to try to make it too hard on myself, making a strict goal of having to hit 50,000 words. I made that kind of more of a looser aim. And my goals in this was just to get a good start on my novel and to be able to make this video, to follow the routines of 4 different famous authors, one for each week of the month of November, so I could share this with you guys. And I accomplished both of those things, so here I am, and I'm going to share with you each of these 4 different authors' routines and how each one went for me. So enjoy! Franz Kafka. His schedule often looked like this: working from 8:30 to 2:30, lunch until 3:30, sleep until 7:30, exercise, have dinner, and then finally get to writing around 11 p.m. During the time that he would work his day job, I got caught up on my freelance editing projects, blog posts, and other work. I'd be so ready to eat by lunchtime. Then nap time was odd for me because I rarely ever take naps, and this just seemed so strange and silly to me to take a 4-hour nap in the middle of the day and then stay up late writing. Maybe he had good reason for it, or like one article I read said, he was perhaps just a bit of a time waster. Exercising at night was also not something I'd normally do. And then, oh my gosh, starting to write at 11 p.m. That is past my regular bedtime. Trying to write that late was super difficult for me. Here's a clip from my last day of Kafka. Kafka is going to be the death of me. I don't know how he did this. Crazy night owls. Hooligans. Yeah, I am definitely not a night person, and now I know that there's no way I could follow this kind of schedule. But this is the last day, so we can do it. We can do it one more night, and then I get to switch to C.S. Lewis, who has a schedule that is, I would guess, to be much better for me. C.S. Lewis's schedule looked like this: breakfast at 8 a.m., reading or writing from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., tea time during that at 11 a.m., lunch at 1 p.m., a long walk by 2 p.m., more reading or writing from 5 to 7, supper, and then in bed no later than 11 p.m. The wake-up time wasn't that different from Kafka, but he worked more like how I'd prefer to work, getting writing in during the morning hours. Now, tea time. This would be an interesting thing to have in my routine, considering I hate tea. Okay, I've really tried to like it in the past. I've tried so many different teas, but I had never yet found any that I liked or could even tolerate. But I drank the tea for you, dear viewer. I drank it every freaking day for you. Okay, warning to my British friends, this next clip may offend you, and I apologize. Please still love me. People drink this? It doesn't taste like peppermint. It tastes like the bottom of something that was once a drink, but then like the residue and all the gunk just dripped out onto the floor and mixed with some dirt. Maybe there was some candy cane crumbs down there. And that's what we got here. Tea. Oh, maybe I don't breathe it in. Oh gosh. However, after experimenting with adding more and more milk and keeping to it each day, I found myself actually liking it. And I even kept drinking it beyond C.S. Lewis week. I know, crazy, right? I finally like a tea! Hooray! So then Lewis would have lunch and then go on a good long walk for a couple hours. It snowed during my first day of C.S. Lewis week, so I couldn't go on the walk then, but after that, I found a lovely park and I really enjoyed my time walking and letting my mind wander. Some of the days I caught up on replying to voice messages from friends on Telegram, but mainly I enjoyed the beautiful scenery as fall was shifting to winter. It was such a lovely place to go for a walk. Then I would come home, have supper, and I really appreciated C.S. Lewis's bedtime after Kafka almost killed me. The third week, I followed the routine of Victor Hugo. 5 a.m. wake up, writing until midday, lunch, and then exercise, which for him included running until sweaty and then jumping into the water for a swim. All of this was a bit of punishment for him to stay focused on his deadline. Getting up at 5 a.m. was, a bit rough for me. 6 to 7 a.m. is usually a good wake-up time for me, but 5 a.m. is just painful. But I did my best. Oh, I forgot to mention one little thing. To avoid distractions and temptation, Hugo would strip off all his going-out clothes and just wear a gray shawl while he worked to meet a deadline so that he wouldn't be tempted to leave. I didn't have a gray shawl, but I did have a gray snuggie. It was a bit of a rough, cold week. And don't worry, I did put on clothes to go for my run. The last week of NaNoWriMo, I followed Stephen King's schedule, which was simply this. Start writing by 8 or 8:30 a.m., and don't stop until you reach 2,000 words. Once he made his quota, he was free to do whatever he wanted for the rest of the day. He committed to writing every single day, even birthdays and holidays. So I made sure to follow his routine over Thanksgiving. So the main message that I am wanting to communicate to you through this video is that there is no magic formula or like one routine that you have to follow in order to become a best-selling novelist. Like, no, I mean, look at these guys. These were all really successful dudes, really successful authors. And look how different their routines are. We've got someone, working around a work schedule, like a day job that they had, and a crazy night owl. We've got kind of a bit more relaxed. And we've got 5 a.m. and punishing yourself and stripping off all your clothes to avoid distractions. And, meeting a quota and working and writing every single day, even on holidays. Like, these are all very different schedules, but yet they still had success. And so it shows that it's not the routine, in and of itself, but it is figuring out what works best for you. You know, we all work differently. We're all wired differently. We're not cookie cutter people. You know, some people are night owls, some people are early birds, and, you know, some people are working around some kind of schedule, because you have to consider that as well. It's finding that balance between what works best for you and working around like what you have to work around, like routine, your job. You know, maybe you're a parent, and so like you can't get to your passion projects until after they go to bed at 8 p.m. You know, so it's finding that balance between the two of these things. And so like in that example, the parent, you know, maybe you find out you're a better morning person than night person, and you know by 8 p.m. like you've been working so hard, taking care of the kids, and you're just so exhausted by then you can't even write. You just plop down in bed. And so maybe you find out, like, even though this is still hard too, you get up early before your kids get up to find some time to write when your brain is more rested and able to think a bit more clearly. You know, still a hard option, but at least it's better than trying to write at night if that's how you work, right? It's finding out how you work, what works best for you in order to do your best, you know? However, it is totally fine to take inspiration from the routines of other authors. I mean, I am like, well, not Kafka. Kafka was killer for me. But maybe that encourages you. Like maybe you are also someone who is a big time waster and love to take 4-hour naps in the middle of the day. And so this was encouraging to you to see Kafka's schedule, that he was still able to write really great things in that kind of weird routine that's not super structured. For me, I learned from C.S. Lewis Week, I learned that I like AT singular, but hey, it's a start. I also want to implement his long walks, you know, maybe not 2-hour long walks, but I think it'd be really good for me to take an hour, either every day or maybe a few days out of the week to just go for a walk and kind of slow down. Like, I just realized I was talking really fast just now. Like, slow down your pace, let your mind wander. Like, that is so good for you. I was even reading a study on this of how it's one cause of us not being able to sleep at night is when we don't give our minds enough time to process things during the day. So then when you finally lay down at night, when you're trying to sleep, like your brain is suddenly like running through all the different things, and like you can't go to sleep because it's like this and this and this and this and this and this because like you didn't give your brain time during the day. And so it's like, hey, free time to think now, yay. And you're like, shut up, brain. But anyways, or it's like why you get your good ideas in the shower, or whenever like you're forced to just be still, forced to be still because we're so busy and we're like going from one thing to the next, and we're not giving our brains time to like think about things and just wander and play. And I've noticed that in myself when I don't take enough time to let my brain just think about things, you know, for problem solving or just letting it wander, then I find myself like accidentally doing it, you know, where you realize like, oh my goodness, I just zoned out for like 2 hours. What the heck? So if you don't want that to be accidentally happening, or staying up too late at night because you can't sleep because your brain is just running, then it's really helpful to make some time to just let your brain be, to just sit with yourself. That's why yoga is also a good option too, like to just, you know, go through the different poses and just, or meditation, you know, just to let your brain sit for a second, to just chill, to just be, and let it wander where it goes. Not trying to redirect it, but that's how we often solve problems or find, you know, creative solutions, or just feel more relaxed. Like letting our brains have a break. So that's something that I want to implement. Also because it's good for physical health too, to go on walks. And I really enjoyed that, like finding that park. That was so, like I showed you guys some clips of that. That was just beautiful. I loved it. It was so much fun for me. Victor Hugo, you know, I might not be getting up at 5 a.m., but 6 a.m. works pretty good for me. You know, you might not be stripping off all of your clothes and wearing a gray shawl so you're not tempted to leave the home. Like, oh my gosh. Think of like how little self-control he had that he got to that point of having to take his clothes off and to get himself to not leave his home. But man, like, I love that. Like, I'm proud of him for that. That's awesome. And we can take inspiration of, you know, this man who did what he had to do to get stuff done, right? That's awesome. That's great. And to inspire us to eliminate distractions, because that's what he was doing. He was trying to eliminate the things that distracted him. So for us, it might be something different. Maybe you don't need to take off all your clothes, but I mean, if that, do what you gotta do, man. Like, that helps. Anyways, but you know, today our phones. I was about to show you my phone. I'm filming on it right now. Wow, that was silly. So our phones are often a huge distraction, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever been just scrolling and then you're like, oh my goodness, whoops, 2 hours passed and I've done nothing. I really like this. If you have an iPhone, there's this setting. Like, if you go to your settings, it's screen time or downtime. I should have checked that before I started filming. But yeah, it's where you can go in and like decide what apps you want to be kind of locked for certain times in the day. So like, I know that these hours of the day I'm going to be working, so I have like Twitter, Facebook, and like my games and like all these things locked during that time of the day, so that I'm not distracted with notifications popping up, or if I'm filming, I'm not seeing it pop up at the top. You know, and you can click on them, and if you click on it, you can choose to either unlock for 15 minutes or for the rest of the day. And I really appreciate that, because sometimes I want to just check in briefly, but you know how it is. You go in for one quick thing and then hours have passed and you've just been mindlessly scrolling. So having that little 15-minute thing pop up as a reminder of like, oh, oops, I got distracted, and then you can close it back out again, and it's locked again until you unlock it again, or until that set time where it unlocks itself. That's been really helpful for me. Yeah, I really like that new thing that's been added to the iPhone. So, and I'm sure that there are other apps. If you have a different kind of phone, I'm sure there probably are things like this that can help minimize distractions, or I know, crazy idea, but you can just turn your phone off for a bit. Or if you have some kind of setting that allows notifications just to be temporarily turned off until you turn it on again, that's super helpful. Whatever it is, if there's something that some things are out of our control, but if there are things that we can somehow minimize, maybe we can get a little creative with it, you know, but finding ways to eliminate distractions. I think that's something that we can be all inspired by from our dear friend, Victor Hugo. Yep. Or, you know, like Stephen King, maybe you had always thought you had to, have like time-based goals of I'm gonna work on this from this time to this time, and maybe seeing Stephen King's routine of having a quota instead of this many words that I have to write each day. Maybe that just inspired you because it's just not something you had thought of before of being like an option. And I've heard about that before, that it's good to like, maybe you set a really small goal, like maybe like 100 words, and that's like nothing. That's like a few sentences, like barely a paragraph. And that seems really small, but if you set that little goal, it kind of helps you to get past that mental block, because when you have like, oh, I'm gonna write 2,000 words each day, like that's sometimes like you get like stress paralysis, because starting is the hardest part, right? Like, at least for me, like starting is the hardest part. Like, when I get up in the morning and need to work out, the hardest part is starting. But once I get my workout clothes on, then I'm good to go. And so it's kind of using that idea of once you start writing 100 words, because that's like a really doable thing to kind of get you going to think like, okay, just 100 words, I can do this. Like, even if it's poop and I have to edit it later, like that's good, that's fine. But it's so small. Helps to get you started. But then often you find once you get started, once you get those first sentences down, like you start getting on a roll. And next thing you know, you've written 2,000 words and gone way beyond your goal. And, you know, you might have some days where it's rough and you only get out those 100 words, but you can still feel accomplished because you set that goal of like, I only have to get 100 words done each day. So even on those writer block days when just nothing is coming and it's just not working well, you can still feel accomplished. But on most days, you probably are going to write way more than that. And yeah, because it helped you to get started, helped you to get first that hurdle of starting. So we can totally use different authors' routines to inspire us and give us ideas for things to try and test out to see if it works for us, but just don't get caught up in thinking that you have to do it a certain way, because it's just not true. You need to find what works best for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you benefited from this video, make sure to hit the like button and share it with all of your friends, especially if you have some author friends. This might be a great way to start a discussion, get some conversation going on maybe you've heard of different authors' routines before, or maybe you want to share your own experience of what's worked for you and what hasn't. It might be a great way to get some inspiration from each other. And if you'd like to watch more videos from me, make sure to hit the subscribe button. But thank you again so much for watching, and until next time, keep it real.